Thank you. Thank you. We're going to go to our regular list and we're going to start with number 11. MI 2023-006-162, 1954 Patterson Avenue. Mr. McClure, Mr. Shermer, and Mr. Reuter.
Meredith Trago has been promoted to panelist along with Mr. Reuter, sir.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Chairman.
So could you please state your name and spell for the court stenographer?
Sure. My name is Meredith Trego. That's Trego. I'm here with my colleague, Matthew McClure, who already introduced himself, with Ballard Spar,
Right.
Fairmount Park Conservancy.
All right. Just for the record, can you identify your client?
Sure. The Fairmount Park Conservancy is our client.
Okay. Our vice chair has just a few questions.
Good afternoon, Council. Do you agree to waive the reading of the refusal or stipulate to its accuracy?
We do.
Have you emailed in all the required documents and exhibits that is needed and required to proceed with this case 5 days in advance of this hearing?
Yes, we have.
Thank you. Please proceed and share your screen.
Just one.
Mr. Chair,
Is Mr.
excuse me,
Shermer
Chair.
available?
Hold on, sir. Hal Shermer, please raise your virtual hand. All right.
Chair, this is John Kelly, the reporter. I'm not certain that Attorney Trago was sworn in.
Okay, we'll get to that. Okay, thank you.
Hal Shermer's been promoted as well, sir.
Okay, thank you. Meredith, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, thank you.
Someone just notified me that my audio was not good. Can everyone hear me okay?
I can hear you. I hear you pretty good. Yep,
Okay.
fine.
Great.
And Mr. Shermer's on, right?
My colleague is Mr. McClure.
Well, there's another attorney who was representing a neighbor.
Okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm here.
All right, guys, thank you, Mr. Sherman. Council Trago, please proceed and share your screen.
Thank you. Can everyone, oh, there it is. Can
It's coming
everyone
up now.
see
It's
my
coming
screen?
up. Yep, it's fine.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman and members of the board, we are here today with a request for a special exception for the removal of 48 heritage trees within FDR Park. Like I mentioned, we are here on behalf of Fairmount Park Conservancy, who has an agreement with the City of Philadelphia to act as the contractor for the FDR Park improvements that are proposed. The Conservancy is a 501c3 organization that supports city-owned parks and playgrounds and programs in partnership with the City of Philadelphia. The Department of Parks and Recreation, which is the owner of the property, is also here today and will be testifying in support of the project. Just to reiterate, we have filed all of our exhibits numbered 1 through 26 with the board. These exhibits include all of the required information, including details about the need for a special exception, a tree survey and landscaping plan, an affidavit from a certified arborist detailing the condition of the existing trees in the project area, as well as documentation of the notices that have been provided to the community. We'd like to specifically highlight the letters of support in Exhibit 18, which include a letter of support from City Council President Johnson, as well as 260 petitions of support from near neighbors and several letters of support from community organizations. To document our record for the appeal, we'll be having the following witnesses speak on this matter. Allison Shapker, who is the project manager with the Fairmount Park Conservancy, Aparna Palantino, who's the Deputy Commissioner for Parks and Recreation, Charles Neer, who's the landscape architect for the project, Michael Trumbauer, who's the project's restoration ecologist and consultant, Brian Saladin, who is our arborist, and additionally, Mara McCarthy, who's the executive director of the Conservancy, will be available for any questions from the board. Just to orient the board, FDR Park is a 348-acre public park located west of Broad Street in South Philadelphia. As you'll hear today, the restoration of the park represents a significant public investment that will enable the majority of the park's 348 acres to return to nature as lakes, wetlands, meadows, and nature trails. The outer edges of the park will then be raised in elevation, allowing those areas of the park to be used for athletic fields, playgrounds, concessions, and other active recreation uses. Our zoning application before you today concerns only the removal of 48 heritage trees, which is permitted as a special exception under the zoning code. The removal of these 48 trees is necessary to bring this phase of the plan, which is also called the picnic and play phase, into fruition. Specifically, the removal is necessary for the construction of 5 multi-purpose fields, 4 basketball courts, a playground, a picnic grove, and much needed parking facilities for the park. It's important to note from the start that the trees proposed to be removed are located on an abandoned golf course in the northwest corner, which permanently closed in 2019 due in part to frequent flooding of the golf course. Prior to its permanent closure, the Department of Parks and Recreation and the Conservancy had already begun a years-long planning process for the restoration of FDR Park. The resulting park plan represents a once-in-a-generation opportunity to reimagine how this park can serve today's Philadelphians, while also adapting the park to the realities of a hotter and wetter climate. As you'll hear today, our application meets the criteria required for the removal of these heritage trees. That criteria is found in section 14-705-1F.2 of the zoning code. Our witnesses will testify to the satisfaction of these criteria, including that we have satisfied all of the tree replacement requirements contained in section 14-705-1G, that we have satisfied the general criteria for special exception approval found in 14-303-7 of the zoning code. And lastly, that there are no practical alternative designs that would prevent the removal of these trees. We'd like to also note that notices of this project, in addition to being mailed to the community, have also been mailed to the Director of the Office of Sustainability, which is required under the code. We point to the board to exhibits 14, 15, and 16, which demonstrate compliance with all notice requirements. To introduce our witnesses' testimony, I'd just like to relay a few facts about the property. The project area is a 348-acre active recreation park located in South Philadelphia. As shown in our Exhibit 2, the property is zoned SP-POA for active parks and recreation. And as shown in the hatched overlay, indicates that it's also located in the 100-year floodplain. FDR Park currently consists of active and passive recreation uses, and the project area was, until 2019, a golf course. That's this area right here in red. Lastly, we'd like to just address up front the letters of opposition that have been provided to the board by 2 RCOs in particular. As you may already be aware, following our February 13th, 2023 RCO meeting for this application, 2 RCOs, the Packer Park Civic Association and the Friends of FDR Park, submitted letters of opposition. We'd like to briefly add some context to that in-person meeting, which was hosted on February 13th. As stated in the RCO's letters, a majority of their 289 votes that were counted at the meeting voted against approval of the special exception. But we'd like to note that voting at the RCO meeting was not necessarily restricted to attendees living near FDR Park or even residents of the city of Philadelphia. Friends of FDR Park is an RCO that permits any member of its organization to vote on an application, and it does not restrict membership to a geographic area, unlike many other RCOs in the city. So further, we understand that both RCOs restricted voting to dues-paying members only. So this was a $25 fee that was required in order to cast a vote at that meeting. As such, any attendee or person who was present and was not willing or able to pay that membership fee was excluded from casting a vote that evening. Instead, we'd like to draw attention to our Exhibit 18, which includes our letters of support from the council president, petitions from over 200 near neighbors, along with several letters of support from various community organizations who support youth athletics across Philadelphia and who enthusiastically support this project. We'd like to thank you all in advance for your time and attention to this matter, as we do feel the need to assemble a detailed record demonstrating our compliance with the special exception criteria, given the potential opposition to the application. I'd like now to elevate Allison Schapker, who is the project manager for Fairmount Park Conservancy, as a panelist.
Hey, Meredith, if I may interrupt for 1 second.
Sure.
Mr. Chairman, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I wasn't elevated till just now, but Mr. Shermer is attending, and if he is going to seek party status, the ability to cross-examine witnesses, I would like to voir dire his client before he does so.
Mr. Shermer?
If we were in court, that would make sense, but this is the zoning board of adjustment, the rules of evidence don't apply.
Mr. Sherman, that is not correct. The rules of evidence do not apply. That is correct. But you do have to show up with your client if you seek party status. Your client can comment, but to participate as in a counsel in a hearing, in a quasi judicial hearing under Pennsylvania rules, you have to have your client be present, and I have to have the opportunity to voir dire them to see whether they can have standing for party status. If you did not show up with your client because you were seeking a continuance, that is not our clients or all the other folks here issue. That is your own issue. So is your client present?
He is logging in now.
Thank you.
Is there a member of Fairmount Park?
They are certainly here, and you're certainly allowed to cross-examine them when they come up, provided the board gives you party status.
Mr. Shermer, is your client on?
Mr. Chair, I have a Christy Glazer and a Richard Gorella with their hand raised.
Are they your clients?
Richard,
Yeah, okay, so, and he is a neighbor?
correct.
Okay, so we'll get to him when we get to him, all right. Well, so Meredith, why don't you start?
Yeah, thank you.
Um,
Mr. Chairman, sorry.
Thank you.
Yes, I'd like to elevate Allison Shapker with the
Okay.
Conservancy as a panelist.
They will be rejoining as a panelist shortly.
Sure, thank you. Allison?
Yes, can you hear me now?
Hi, yeah, I can. Could you please, good afternoon, by the way. Could you state your name and spell it for the court stenographer?
Yes, my name is Allison Shapker, Schapker.
You swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Proceed, counsel.
Thank you. Ms. Shapker, can you please describe your position at Fairmount Park Conservancy and briefly summarize your professional background?
Sure. I'm the Chief Project Officer with the Fairmount Park Conservancy. I am trained as an architect and a landscape architect, and I have over 19 years experience delivering large-scale, multi-phase projects in the public realm.
Thank you. What is your role with the FDR Park project, and how long have you been involved with this plan?
My role for the FDR Park project is to function as the project manager, representing the city of Philadelphia and the Fairmount Park Conservancy to our consultants. I've been involved with this project since June of 2018, when the community engagement phase began.
Thank you. I'm going to turn to our Exhibit 3, which is a aerial of the FDR Park area. Can you please describe the location of the proposed improvements and tell us about how this area of the park has been used in the past?
Yes, so exactly. Your cursor is indicating the location of the picnic and play phase. This is primarily a large soil stockpile, about half of a former driving range and a portion of one of the fairways of the former golf course. This part of the park was originally 4 fairways and a driving range, and today it is used as an informal dog run and a soil stockpile.
Thank you. Turning to Exhibits 4A and B, can you tell us a little bit about the existing conditions of the park?
Absolutely. It's important to understand FDR Park, to understand how it is affected by groundwater and stormwater. FDR Park is represented in the heavy bold line on the image on your page. You should think of that line as the rim of the bathtub, where most of the park sits below the rim of the bathtub. The areas in pink represent portions of the park that are below the existing floodplain. These areas are going to experience groundwater flooding. This is the flooding that occurs when the high tide in the Delaware River is higher than the ground elevation in the park. That means that even without rain, these areas are going to be wet. Additionally, the park experiences stormwater runoff from 95, from Broad Street, and from portions of Pattison Avenue. You can see along the edge of the park, there are a few remaining white areas. These are the part of the park that are out of the floodplain. And you see in the southwest corner a larger area of white. This is a construction waste area that was in the park until 2022 and has now been restored into a 30-acre tidal wetland. This helps to restore the original drainage and creates the soil that is in the stockpile of the image we looked at previously.
Thank you. Between 2019, when it was closed, when the golf course was closed, and today, how has that area been used and maintained since its closure?
So a portion of the golf course has been allowed to become overgrown. It has experienced invasive species pressures. The city did allow residents to use the existing cart path for walking as a COVID relief measure. You can see here that the former fairways continue to flood from groundwater.
Is it accurate that the Department of Parks and Recreation and the Conservancy initiated the planning process for FDR Park prior to the permanent closure of the golf course?
That is accurate. Fundraising for the planning process began in 2016, full 3 years before the golf course closed.
Okay. I'm turning now to Exhibit 4C. Can you please tell us about the purpose of the FDR Park plan?
Absolutely. When the planning process began, the park was essentially divided into two halves. The eastern half of the park had some recreational amenities that largely ate into the historic landscape created by the Olmsted brothers. These amenities, the fields and the courts, experienced flooding. The roads and the parking areas were difficult to maintain because of their location in the floodplain. The western half of the park was a 148-acre golf course with, again, that 40-acre waste site in the southwest corner. The golf course was suffering from dwindling use, largely due to ongoing flooding that rendered portions of the course unusable. The park as a whole was really unable to accommodate the changing climatic conditions and the changing recreational trends nationwide and in Philadelphia.
What was the community engagement process that took place in connection with the creation of the park plan?
Yes, the community engagement process was fully 50% of the park planning budget. And our goal with this engagement process was to meet people where they are. And so that included planning done in 5 different languages, meetings in communities and neighborhoods at different times of the day, stakeholder interviews. And our goal was to make sure that we talked to everyone, regardless of their ability to use social and digital media, but to meet them in their churches and their schools and in their rec centers.
Thank you. And what were the results of the community engagement process? How are the priorities of that process reflected in the proposed plan?
Well, the main revelation of the community engagement process is that no one was interested in playing golf at FDR Park in the future. And so this revelation opened up the opportunity for us to reconsider what that 148 acres of parkland could be. And so as a result, we have the potential to deliver the multi-purpose fields and also to deliver the basketball courts that were the #1 write-in request of community members. Happily, though, in 348 acres, with a diversity of landscape types and conditions, almost all of the experiences requested by community members can be delivered in the full park plan.
Thank you. I'm turning now to Exhibit 6, which shows the improvements for the overall park. The phase we're talking about today, the picnic and play phase, is just one piece of the larger park plan. Can you briefly tell us about the overall plans for FDR Park as shown on Exhibit 6?
Right. The overall plans for the FDR Park are about making sure that this park, all 348 acres of it, balance activity, nature, and water to meet the needs of Philadelphians today and into the future. And so this includes a park that is unified across its eastern and western halves, a park that has almost 200 acres of what we call the ecological core, balanced by active recreation around the edges. And we're excited because with the exception of golf, this park plan offers more trails, more natural areas, more fields, more recreation amenities than what is reflected in the park when we began the planning process.
Thank you. You mentioned the sort of blue-green sort of center of it. As you previously noted, the park is mostly located in the floodplain. Can you please explain how the floodplain impacts the proposed plans and the design?
Absolutely. It's really important to understand and go back to thinking about that image where parts of the park were pink and then the very edge of the park was white. The area that you see in pink, that is the active edge. These are the areas of fields, courts, playgrounds, parking, buildings that need to stay high and dry so that Philadelphians are able to access and use them. These are types of programs that we wouldn't necessarily want to see get flooded. However, the plan for this park is always to balance activity, nature, and water. So the blue-green area of the park represents the parts of the park that we will allow to be impacted by groundwater flooding, represents the areas of the park that will be managed for their habitat, that represent the part of the park that can act like a sponge for the rest of the landscape. And the way that this is going to happen, and is already happening, is the portion of the park in the southwest corner that you see called the wetlands. That was the 40-foot tall hill of construction waste material. That material sits on the low part of the park. It was lifted up and placed in the footprint of the picnic and play site, our project site for this meeting. That hill will be spread out to elevate the picnic and play phase. And when we elevate that landscape, we are able to now get stormwater management under those fields in those parking lots that further help us protect what's coming off the surrounding surface roads and help us protect that blue-green ecological core. So basically, the active urban edge of the park not only provides important amenities, it also helps us protect the ecological core of the park from the stormwater that's impacting it today.
Thanks. Can you briefly tell us a little bit about the specific improvements that are proposed for the park picnic and play phase?
The picnic and play phase includes 5 multi-purpose fields, 4 basketball courts, a baseball and tennis cloverleaf, and tennis or pickleball courts. Critically, it also provides the amenities that we know are really important to make sure that caregivers and families enjoy the youth sports experience as well. So we have accessible parking, we have 2 large picnic areas, we have a playground, and we have plenty of shade trees.
Thank you. Why was this particular site selected for the proposed athletic fields and courts?
Because a large portion of this site is already a soil stockpile, and the remaining portion of this site was former fairways, it has a low ecological value. And using the existing soil stockpile, we're able to elevate the landscape, include stormwater management. And at this site, in doing that here, we don't hit wetlands, we don't hit high value habitat areas that have been identified elsewhere on the park plan.
Thank you. Are passive and recreation uses such as trails and open spaces, are those provided for within the park plan?
Absolutely. We have 348 acres here, and I will just draw your attention to Area B. This is the first part of the ecological core, 30 acres of which are already under construction in the tidal wetland, and the balance of which is in design currently, and this includes the soft surface trails that are so important for folks to gain access to these valuable natural areas.
Thank you. Ms. Schapker, based on your years of experience working on this project, are you aware of alternative practical designs for the proposed improvements that would prevent the need to remove these 48 heritage trees without compromising the other important goals of the plan, including flood management, programming, and the protection of other ecologically sensitive areas?
I am not.
Thank you. Does the board have any other further questions for Ms. Schapker?
Questions from the board?
No, Chair. No,
No,
Chair.
I think we're fine.
Thank you. We'd now like to elevate a
Hold
final.
on 1 minute. Hillary, do you want to have Mr. Shermer take questions? Okay, prepare questions give questions.
I believe that would be appropriate. I
Yeah,
understand that
Mr. Shermer,
McClure,
do you have any,
Mr.
Mr.
McClure
Shermer, do you
wanted
have any
to,
questions?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I do.
Okay,
And actually do have a couple of visuals, so if I can pull these up. And if I can, well, I guess first I would ask, as far as designing this project, is there some ordinance or resolution from City Council that authorized Fairmount Park Conservancy to make these changes?
The Conservancy has been working in partnership with Philadelphia Parks and Recreation on this project, and each phase of work that we do with the City of Philadelphia, we enter into an agreement authorizing that work with the Philadelphia Parks and Recreation.
Are those agreements in the record?
Yes, they are. They're exhibit 26 that have been provided to the board.
Okay, I had requested copies of the exhibits that were put in but hadn't been able to review them. Would like to request to the board that if I can share my screen briefly.
please let
Sometimes
Mr. Shermer
visuals
share the
are
screen.
a lot quicker.
Meredith, can you take yours down?
Sure, yes.
Thank you kindly.
Let's see. Did mine unshare or no?
And Mr. Chairman, while
Not yet,
Mr.
Meredith.
Shermer's
There
doing
we
go.
that,
Now it has.
Thank you.
if we
Thank
could have
you.
the addresses of Mr. Shermer's clients, just so we could like at least understand where they're from.
I asked originally where they, what neighborhoods. Do you have your clients, where they
Yes.
live, what blocks?
Yes, if I can call Rich, I think if they can put their hands up.
Do you don't know where your clients live?
No, Rich has, I do not know the exact locations. Rich has his hand up, if we could have him
Okay.
put on to
You'll have
get.
to speak.
Okay,
Okay,
I'm
good.
on.
Hi, could you state your name, please, and spell for the court stenographer?
my name is Richard Garella, Garella.
Right. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Ms. Garella, could you please give us your address?
It's 1642 South Bancroft Street, Philadelphia, PA.
That's 1600 blocks south, you're saying?
Yes,
So you're not necessarily a neighbor.
I'm not an immediate neighbor, but
Okay,
it's
thank
the
you.
only large park nearby.
May
Thank
I
you.
ask a question of Mr. Grella?
Sure.
Mr. Grella, how many blocks are you away from the park?
I guess about 12 to 15. I'd have to look at a map.
12 to 15. Over a mile?
Yeah, I think it's over a mile.
You live in Packer Park.
No.
I object to Mr. Grella being as a party, and as such, I object to any ability to Mr. Shermer to participate as attorney for Mr. Grella. Mr. Grella,
Okay,
obviously.
Okay, all right, okay. All right, Mr. Sherman, do you have a response to that? I mean,
Yes.
do you have a client that lives near here?
Well, first the response, this is being touted as a regional area, a regional draw, and if the input from a neighbor who is not immediate neighbor is rejected, then I would ask that the board reject all the letters of support who are coming from people who are not immediate neighbors. Either there's one standard and anybody who is going to be benefiting from this, whether they're throughout the entire section of Southwest Philly, then that standard should apply for standing. If the applicant is going to say these are people who will benefit from it and they can be from anywhere, the people who will who will be receiving or are harmed by it can be from that same area. If not,
Excuse me, Mr. Chair. This is Hillary. I just want to interject. The zoning code does permit anybody who
I know, I
wishes
understand.
to appear at the hearing
Right.
and testify. So certainly Mr. Shermer can testify on behalf of his clients. But it is up to the board to decide whether they will be considered a party or not and would have
I won't-
the ability to cross-examine, but his clients certainly can participate as public testifiers at a minimum. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I just add, we have no objection to his client testifying as a neighbor during the public comment period, but to have a party status, you have to have an interest greater than the general public. So the general public certainly has a right to comment. For Mr. Shermer to act as an attorney here today and be able to cross in.
So, Mr. Shermer, I agree with that. Both your clients can have access when we open it up to the public, but I think I agree with Mr. McClure and that, your active role cannot take place.
Well, Mr. Chairman, you haven't heard from the other client yet.
I asked you right away, where does the other client live?
If I can get Miss Anissa on, if you can raise your hand.
They've been allowed to speak as well.
Could you please state your name and spell for the court stenographer?
My name is Anissa George, Anisa George, like the curious monkey.
Yep. Right. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Where do you live?
I live at 1232 Reed Street, which is a couple blocks north of Rich. And I do agree that this is a regional park and it serves a wider area.
So what we're going to do is when we open this up to the public, you will have a chance to comment. Mr. Shermer, you're not going to be able to take an active role in this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Please continue, Meredith, with your client.
Thank you. We'd like to elevate Aparna Palantino, who's the Deputy Commissioner with the Department of Parks and Rec, to panelist. And I will go ahead and reshare my screen. Is Aparna on?
Nope, we got you back, Meredith. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Is Ms. Palantino? Oh, I see her.
I'm here.
Could you please state your name and spell for the court stenographer?
Certainly. It's Aparna Palantino, Aparna Palantino, Palantino.
You swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Aparna, do you have a video? Could you come on?
I'm not sure why.
Staff, can we promote her to panelist? Jason, thank you.
There we go.
Lower left-hand corner. There you go.
Okay, she'll be rejoining as a panelist, ma'am. Thank you.
She didn't have the capability. She's coming back.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
We can. We're trying to see you.
I can see myself.
Okay, why don't we start the test?
Okay, Ms. Palantino, can you please describe your position at the City of Philadelphia and summarize your professional background?
Yes, I'm here today as the Deputy Commissioner overseeing capital infrastructure and natural lands management for the Department of Parks and Recreation. I'm trained as an architect with over 27 years of design and construction experience and have worked in the public sector for 22 years.
Thank you. What is your role with the FDR Park project and how long have you been involved in this plan?
So in my current role as Deputy Commissioner, I'm responsible for oversight of real estate as well as all major design and construction projects for assets comprising Philadelphia Parks and Recreation's portfolio. I have been involved with this particular project at FDR since 2017 when we began the master planning process in partnership with the Fairmount Park Conservancy.
Thank you. I'm going to go to Exhibit 4D. Can you please tell us a bit about what this shows, what we're looking at?
Essentially, this shows that there are 21,000 children living in this area. and that there are insufficient number of fields to service them all.
Do you agree, based on your professional experience with the department, that there's a need for additional fields and courts in Philadelphia?
I certainly do. We often have to turn away permit requests due to unavailability of fields in our system. Additionally, the fields that we do have are significantly overused, and this impacts the quality of those fields. A recent analysis of our fields by Temple determined that at least half of our fields were rate below average, with the rating of 2.5 on a 1 to 5 scale. This results in poor quality facilities for our children in Philadelphia compared to surrounding cities and counties.
Who does Parks and Recreation anticipate will primarily use the proposed fields at FDR Park?
The recreational amenities in FDR Park, including the fields, will follow current PPR policy, which prioritizes local youth teams and PPR, or Philadelphia Parks and Recreation led leagues, for permitting the fields, and permit fees are waived for local youth sports organizations.
Do you have a sense of how many people or children are anticipated to use the proposed athletic fields each year?
Yes, based on a utilization study, it is anticipated that these fields could serve over 60,000 youth athletes annually.
And that's for the combined 5 fields proposed as part of
the 5
this.
fields. Yes, correct.
Are you able to just briefly discuss the benefits that youth sports and active recreation amenities like these provide to the city?
So research has shown that participating in youth sports can provide significant mental, physical, emotional, and social health benefits for youth, their families, and communities. These benefits include an improvement in overall physical health, a reduced risk of diabetes, improved cardiovascular health. We also see lower rates of anxiety and depression, lower amounts of stress, higher self-esteem and confidence, a reduced risk of suicide and substance abuse, improved social skills, as well as higher levels of academic achievement.
Right. Included in our exhibits 18 are letters of support from several youth sports or associations in Philadelphia. Can you tell us about some of these organizations and summarize the statements that are expressed in these letters?
Certainly. These organizations and individuals work diligently alongside our staff to facilitate positive structured activities for our children. These organizations often go above and beyond to provide these services so that all Philadelphia children can experience the benefits mentioned previously. In some instances, as we've often witnessed, this is the only structure, youth sports, that is, for these children. Sometimes it's their only present parental figure that these children have. Lack of facilities in their communities often results in challenges for access for the most vulnerable youth. Many of these organizations that have submitted letters do not have means to pay for high quality facilities or travel, putting local youth at a disadvantage on a regional as well as national level.
Thank you. Ultimately, we've heard that 12 full-size multi-use fields are proposed for the entire FDR Park, along with baseball, softball diamonds, basketball courts, and tennis courts. In your professional opinion, do you believe that the proposed 12 multi-use fields will be enough for Philadelphia to meet the demand it has for athletic fields?
I do not believe they will be able to meet the demand across our system, but it is the first step to addressing the need.
Thank you. Do any members of the board have further questions for Ms. Pelletier?
Questions from the board? What do we move on?
No, Chair.
Okay, thank you.
We'd like to elevate Brian Saladin, our arborist for the project, as
Okay.
panelist.
Yep.
They will be joining as a panelist shortly.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, Brian, could you please state your name and spell for the court stenographer?
Sure. My name is Brian Saladin, BryanSalladin.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Please proceed, counsel.
Thank you. Mr. Saladin, can you confirm that your resume is included in the exhibit package as Exhibit 22?
Yes, it is.
Can you briefly summarize your professional background?
Sure. Currently, I'm a senior environmental scientist for an ecological restoration consulting firm called Biohabitats. I've got over 25 years of experience in natural resource inventories, evaluations, monitoring, restoration design, and management, both in natural and modified urban settings. I've been a certified arborist with the International Society of Arboriculture for 17 years, and I hold the ISA tree risk assessment qualification.
Thank you. I'd like to introduce Brian Saladin as a certified professional arborist.
Thank you.
Mr. Saladin, can you please briefly describe your role in this project?
Sure. I've been on this project for about 2 years, serving as a senior environmental scientist and certified arborist for the design team, which included conducting natural resource evaluations for this specific project, but also for other projects that are continuing across the park, including wetland delineations and additional tree surveys.
Thank you. Exhibit 10 of our packet, the zoning code requires that any project seeking a special exception for the removal of heritage trees also complies with the code's tree replacement standards found in section 14.705.1G, which are showing on the screen. Are you familiar with the tree replacement standards of this section of the zoning code?
Yes, I am.
Can you tell us what constitutes a heritage tree under the Philadelphia zoning code?
Sure. A heritage tree is a tree, it's an individual tree greater than or equal to 25 inches in trunk diameter. That is one of a species of 31 species listed on the City of Philadelphia Heritage Tree List.
Does the zoning code exempt certain trees from the replacement requirements?
Yes, trees that are as determined by a certified arborist that are dead, damaged, diseased, or are in an undesirable species in a present location, or individuals that also pose potential danger to life or property are excluded from the heritage tree list, and
Thank you.
therefore tree replacement.
Okay. I'm going to turn now to Exhibit 8B, or 8A and B, which are tree and landscape plan, as well as a map depiction of the trees for the site. Can you please tell us about the tree survey that you performed as part of this project?
Sure. Conducted a tree survey over about, it was 3 days in 2023, 1 day in March and the other 2 in May. The survey included identifying, measuring, and evaluating the condition of all trees over 2.5 inches in diameter that were within and in close proximity to the limits of this proposed project, which I believe is about 32 acres. So for the evaluation of each tree, we used a ground-based visual assessment using the Council of Tree and Landscape Appraisers condition assessment protocol. This involved examining all visible parts of each tree, looking for defects in each portion of the tree, defects that might indicate poor health or a compromised structure, and then applying a numerical ranking to each of those parts, 1 through 4, with 1 being the worst or 4 being the best. And then accumulation of those numerical rankings are used to develop an overall condition with a potential of 100% being a perfect tree. So
you prepared an affidavit or summary of your tree survey, which we've included as Exhibit 8C in the record. Do you attest that this affidavit accurately summarizes the results of your survey?
Yes, it does.
I'm going to turn now to the tree impact table, which was included as a summary on the tree plan that demonstrates the results of the tree survey. Can you provide us with an overview of the results of your tree survey?
Sure. A total of 648 trees were identified across the survey area for a total caliper inches of tree that equaled 7,743 caliper inches. About 180 of those, or roughly 30%, were in poor condition. And also of those 648 trees, 73 heritage trees were identified, with about 25 or a quarter of those being excluded from replacement due to being in poor condition.
Right. Ultimately, how many caliper inches of tree will be replaced or need to be replaced on the property?
There are 2,556 caliper inches of replacement required.
And do you agree that 48 heritage trees are required to secure a special exception approval as part of this plan?
Yes, that is true.
Thank you. Do any members of the board have any further questions for Mr. Saladin?
Any questions from the board?
No, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you.
No, Chair.
You're welcome.
You want to move on to your next client? Witness?
Yes. We'd like to elevate Mr. Michael Trumbauer, the restoration ecologist for the project, to panelist.
Meredith, how many more witnesses do you have?
We have Mr. Trumbauer and then one more.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We thank you all for your time.
Oh, sure.
You able to hear me?
Yes, good afternoon, sir. Could you please state your name and spell for the court stenographer?
Yes, Michael Trumbauer, Trumbauer.
Right. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please proceed, counsel.
Thank you. Mr. Trumbauer, can you confirm that your resume is included in the exhibit package as Exhibit 21?
Yes.
Can you please briefly summarize your professional background?
Sure. I'm a senior restoration ecologist and team leader for the Chesapeake and Delaware Bays bioregion at Biohabitats, a nationally recognized leader in restoration ecology. I have over 20 years experience in restoration ecology, which involves the recovery of damaged ecosystems. For people not familiar with restoration ecology, what I do is best described as an ecosystem doctor that assesses the health of a system and determines what is needed to make it more functional and resilient.
Thank you. Have you ever been introduced as an expert in restoration ecology in Philadelphia?
Yes.
I'd like to introduce Mr. Michael Trumbauer as an expert in restoration ecology.
Thank you.
Mr. Trumbauer, can you please briefly describe your role in this project?
Yeah, my work started in FDR Park in 2019 with the Airport Wetland Mitigation Project, which was recently constructed in the southern portion of the park near I-95. I served as the project manager and senior restoration ecologist for that project. As part of that work, Biohabitats delineated wetlands throughout the west side of the park to identify the stockpile staging and sorting areas for the wetland construction that would not impact these valuable resources. In 2021, we were formally brought onto the master planning team to help them quantify the project's resource impacts and assist in redefining the ecological core for the western side.
Thank you. I'm going to turn back to Exhibit 5B. We heard from Ms. Shapker about the intent of elevating the edges for the FDR Park. Can you tell us a little bit more about the rationale for this design?
Based on our assessment work, we defined the areas in the center of the property to contain the more significant ecological resources. So these were things like forest, wetland, wildlife habitat. As you move out from this cord toward the perimeter of the site, the quality of these resources diminished as they became disconnected from that larger core, contiguous core habitat. The areas along the perimeter consisted of former fairways, individual trees dividing them. And overall, this was a heavily disturbed area and was adjacent to the urban edge, which also diminishes the ecological value.
Thank you. I'm going to turn to Exhibit 4B, which are some historic aerials of the project site. Can you please tell us a little bit about the trees that are shown here? And this is an aerial taken about 20 years ago in 2004.
Yeah, this appears to be a very highly managed landscape with a number of open grown fairway trees. These open grown trees can grow quickly and get large quickly because they don't compete for light and other resources like they would in a forested condition. Overall, this area is dominated by individual trees or clusters of trees, and it was managed as a golf course for so long. As a forest would be a more naturalized setting with larger groupings of trees with varied age classes, a canopy, and understory and herbaceous layers that forms a diverse and complex ecosystem.
Thank you. Is it accurate that the site of the former golf course experiences regular flooding?
Yes, we can see signs of the regular inundation in the aerial signatures from the Google Earth imagery when you scroll through time. This is one of the reasons that prompted us to recommend that the airport perform a a more comprehensive look at the wetlands on the entire west side of the park in order to locate their soil hill. We also measured water levels in the Shedbrook Creek from August 2020 to May 2021. And the water level in the creek, which is normally around elevation 0, rose by 1 foot more than 4 times during that period. And the west side of the park is very flat and low. So when the creek level is high, when it raises by a foot, large areas get inundated by water. And the flooding is also a result of the poor drainage in the park because of the very flat topography. The water just doesn't drain off into the creeks. There's poor soils and a high water table that also influence the ability for the landscape to drain.
Thank you. What are some of the impacts that we'd expect to see on the existing trees, given the regular flooding at this site?
Yeah, many of the trees, especially the pine trees, cherry trees, and some of the oak species are not well adapted to having wet feet where they're with that high groundwater and high water table perched at the surface. So these trees would become stressed and in time would decline in health.
Thank you. Can you please tell us about how the proposed improvements address this flooding issue?
Yeah, in the areas of the proposed park improvements, the elevation is going to be raised above the elevation of the regular creek flooding. As part of this, the entire site will be graded to better drain, and stormwater infrastructure will be installed to further improve the drainage and treat the stormwater runoff from the fields and parking lots. In the process of filling the land, the soils in the tree planting areas will be amended to better support new plantings, and the plantings will include a diverse selection of native trees and other native vegetation that are adapted to the proposed conditions and more resilient to the climate change.
Thank you. Is it correct that following the community planning process for the park, which began in 2018, your firm then engaged in a detailed survey of the park's wetlands and ecological features?
Correct. As I previously mentioned, our work started with the wetland assessment of the west side of the park for the airport in 2020, and work with Fairmount Park started in 2021. Work with Fairmount Park tied all that previous work together and demonstrated where the high value ecological resources were located.
And are those the resources shown here in Exhibit 5A?
Correct.
Thank you. And at the time of your survey, Parks and Recreation and the Conservancy had already created an initial draft plan for FDR Park, which is also shown here on the exhibit, underlaid beneath the ecological resources. Did the results of your survey conflict with the original 2019 park plan?
It was clear from the original park, or the original park plan was developed without the benefit of a detailed ecological survey. The original plan appeared to be mainly about making sure their program elements could fit within the park. It did, however, include a smaller ecological core and a space for nature and passive recreation.
In your professional opinion, does the current plan minimize the impact of the proposed athletic fields on the park's ecological resources?
Yes, the current plan cites the fields and supporting infrastructure in one of the more damaged and least ecologically sensitive areas of the park.
In your professional opinion, would raising the elevation of the former golf course give future trees and landscaping a better chance to thrive at this location?
Yes, the proposed trees and landscaping will consist of species adapted to this environment and will be installed in amended soils so they will thrive in this location.
Is it correct that doing nothing to address the flooding and elevation of this area will ultimately lead to the further loss of healthy native tree canopy in this part of the park?
Correct. Many of the trees that are not adapted to the wetter site conditions will be stressed and start to decline.
And based on your extensive knowledge of the park's ecology, could the placement of the proposed fields and parking be practically changed to avoid the tree removal without compromising the other important goals of the plan, including flood management or programming and protection of other ecologically sensitive areas?
No, not without impacting other ecological resources.
Thank you. That's all for Mr. Trumbauer. Do any of the members of the board have any further questions?
All good.
Okay, all right. We'd next like to elevate Mr. Charles Neer, who is our landscape architect for the project, to panelist, and Mr. Neer is our last witness.
Everybody joining as a panelist.
Hello, can you hear me?
Mr. Chairman,
Phil, you're muted.
I'm sorry, I'm unmuted.
No, not you, Chairman.
Sir, could you please state your name and spell for the court stenographer?
Yes, my name is Charles Neer, CharlesNeer.
You're breaking, sir, you're breaking up. Could you try again? You're breaking up.
I'm having an unstable connection. My name is Charles Neer, and last name Neer, first name Charles, Charles.
Right. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please proceed, counsel.
thank you. Mr. Neer, can you confirm that your resume is included in the exhibit package as Exhibit 20?
Yes, it is.
Can you please briefly summarize your professional background?
Yes, I'm a principal at WRT, where I've worked for over 25 years. I'm a registered landscape architect for the past 18 years. I have a master's degree in landscape architecture from the University of Pennsylvania and an undergraduate degree in architecture from Washington University. I'm a member of the American Society of Landscape Architects, City Parks Alliance, Urban Land Institute, and World Urban Parks, and a board member of the McCarg Center at the University of Pennsylvania.
Thank you. I'd like to introduce Charles Neer as an expert in landscape architecture.
Thank you.
Mr. Neer, can you please briefly describe your role in this project?
For the past 6.5 years, I've been the project manager for the FDR Park plan and the subsequent implementation projects. This picnic and play project is one of 7 implementation projects currently underway at FDR Park.
Thank you. Aside from the need for a special exception due to the removal of 48 heritage trees from the site, is it accurate that the proposed project is otherwise code compliant?
Yes, this project is code compliant and has been reviewed by the city.
Thank you. Looking again at the exhibit shared on the screen, we heard previously from Mr. Trumbauer about the ecological study that he helped undertake following the original 2019 plan for FDR Park. Mr. Trumbauer testified that the original plan was revised to reflect what was learned in the ecological study of the park. Can you tell us specifically about how that plan was revised?
Sure. After the 2019 park plan, several things changed that required us to revisit the plan. First, the first T decided to leave the park, which opened up over 12 acres of land to be included into the ecological core. Secondly, we learned that Bel Air Manor belongs on the historic register and requires a more significant landscape setting. And third, we audited the entire site to identify where the high quality habitat existed and where we had the potential to develop new high quality habitat. This was the work that Mike Trumbauer mentioned previously. The resulting 2022 park plan has significant revisions that expands the ecological core to 60% of the site, which is over 200 acres, to maximize the environmental benefits to the park and therefore to the city as a whole. The multi-purpose fields have been pushed even further to the edge of the park and have been sited to avoid the identified areas of high quality habitat that Mike Trumbauer has spoken about. The fields are raised and they're aggregated into groups for efficiency of construction, for use and maintenance, while opening much of the central lower portion of the abandoned golf course for the nature phase project within the ecological core that Allison spoke of earlier. We made the decision to prioritize the areas of high quality habitat over the 48 individual fairway trees so that we can provide a much larger ecological benefit to the park and therefore the city. For this project, we have to balance social equity with ecological resilience.
Thank you. I'm going to turn to exhibits 8A and B, which show our tree plan for the proposed project. Did you help create the proposed planting plan?
Yes, WRT created this plan.
Was an effort made during the course of designing the project to preserve or save as many trees in the site as possible?
Yes, we're saving over 120 trees. Given that the fields and the recreation areas need to be raised as much as 8 to 10 feet in places, we have limited practical alternatives to avoid the 48 fairway trees. It is best practice to align the fields north-south. We can't impact Bel Air Manor. We can't build over Shedbrook Creek. and we can't impact the more sensitive, higher quality areas of habitat that are adjacent to this location or in other parts of the park that Mike already spoke of. We were able to save as many trees as possible around Bel Air Manor and places east of the manor when routing the alignment for the multi-use trail. This is an area where the grades are already relatively high and we do not need to fill any further.
Thank you. In order to comply with the tree replacement requirements of the zoning code, how many trees are proposed to be planted as part of this application?
We are proposing 1,025 new trees.
All of the trees are proposed to be 2.5-inch DBH, which means diameter at breast height. Can you tell us why this size tree was chosen?
Well, 2.5-inch caliber trees are the minimum required tree replacement size as indicated in the Philadelphia zoning code, listed in section 14-705 tree replacement requirements. But 2.5-inch caliber trees are also an ideal size for tree planting. They have shown to have less issues acclimating to new sites, have less root disturbance when being transplanted from nurseries, are easier to move around on site, and most importantly, may outgrow a larger caliper tree planted at the same time within 5 years. A larger caliper tree would be more expensive, require more robust equipment to move them around on site, and they do not establish as quickly as smaller trees.
Thank you. Will the new trees planted differ from the trees that are proposed to be removed in terms of species or other attributes?
All the new trees specified for the project, all 1,025, are from the City of Philadelphia approved tree list. They are all native and will be well adapted to a hotter, wetter future that we are already facing in the city. The biggest difference is that these new trees will be planted in ideal growing conditions that will allow them to survive and thrive. Raising the ground out of the constant presence of water and providing well-drained soils with room for roots to grow will give all of these trees the best chance to significantly add to the urban tree canopy in the city. The challenge with the current fairway trees is that they are all growing on poor urban soils with constant water inundation that will only get worse. Tree roots do need water, but they also need nutrients and air, and they can't get them if they're constantly being drowned. The newly proposed trees will be better suited to a more resilient future and will play a large role in jumpstarting the ecological recovery process in the park.
Thank you. I'm going to turn now to Exhibit 10, which includes the zoning codes for requirements for special exception approval for the removal of a heritage tree. Are you familiar with this section of the code?
Yes, I am.
One of the requirements includes compliance with section 14.705(1)G for tree replacement requirements. Are you familiar with this section of the code?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Is it true that all trees 2.5-inch DBH or larger proposed to be removed and the proposed replacement trees have been indicated on the site plan included in Exhibit 8A?
Yes, they have all been indicated on the site plan.
Is it true that the total caliper inches of replacement trees exceeds the total caliper inches of all trees proposed to be removed from the lot?
Yes, the total caliper inches of the proposed tree planting exceeds the total inches of DBH of all the trees proposed to be removed from the lot.
Thank you. Is it also true that each replacement tree is proposed to be at least 2.5 caliber at planting?
Yes, all replacement trees are 2.5-inch calipers indicated in the Philadelphia zoning code.
And can you confirm that the proposed replacement trees will be located on the same lot as the trees proposed to be removed?
Yes, all proposed replacement trees will be located on the same lot as the trees proposed to be removed.
Thank you. An additional requirement for the special exception approval for the removal of heritage trees is that we comply with section 14.3037, which are the general special exception criteria within the code. And that provides that the special exception will not cause specific detrimental impacts to the neighborhood beyond which that might normally be expected from the proposed use. Mr. Neer, are you familiar with section 14.3037?
Yes, I am.
In the present matter, the proposed use is the removal of the 48 heritage trees. In your professional opinion, is it correct that the grant of the special exception will not cause congestion in the public streets or transportation system beyond that which normally might be expected from the proposed use?
Yes, that is correct.
Is it correct that the grant of the special exception will not cause overcrowding of land beyond that which normally might be expected from the proposed use?
Yes, that is correct.
Is it correct that the grant of the special exception will not impair the supply of light and air to adjacent property beyond that might normally be expected from the proposed use?
Yes, that is correct. The proposed project is located in a large city park, therefore no negative impacts to the surrounding area are anticipated.
Is it correct that the grant of the special exception will not burden water, sewer, school, park, or other public facilities beyond which might normally be expected from the proposed use?
That is correct. The proposed project will be permitted and coordinated with PWD, PADEP, and other reviewing agencies.
Is it correct that the grant of the special exception will not impair or permanently injure the use of adjacent conforming properties beyond that which might normally be expected from the proposed use?
Yes, that is correct.
Is it correct that the grant of the special exception will not endanger the public health or safety by fire or other means beyond that which might normally be expected from the proposed use?
Yes, that is correct.
Is it correct that the grant of the special exception will not be inconsistent with the comprehensive plan?
Yes, that is correct.
And is it correct that the grant of the special exception will not cause general detrimental impacts on the neighborhood beyond that which might normally be expected from the proposed use?
Yes, that is correct.
In your professional opinion, do you agree that the project cannot be practically redesigned to protect the heritage trees without compromising the programming or impacting the other important ecological features of the park?
In my professional opinion, I believe the project cannot be practically redesigned to protect the 48 trees proposed to be removed. Locating the elevated program elsewhere in the park would result in greater environmental impacts. Aggregating the recreational program to the edge of the park and keeping them high and dry and usable allows the rest of the ecological core to provide the maximum ecological benefits and services to the park and to the city.
Thank you, Mr. Neer. Those are all my questions. Do any members of the board have further questions for Mr. Neer?
No questions. No questions.
We would like,
Chair.
okay, we would like to move applicants exhibits 1 through 26 into evidence.
Chair, you're on mute.
Council, one of the things we're going to do is that we know we have people in the audience on both sides of this who want to express themselves.
Yes.
Want to have a resumptive date for a further hearing. You've presented your case. We'll come back and we're going to get a date as soon as we can. And we'll have a resumptive hearing. We'll make sure that all parties are notified of where we stand. But it's just too much to try to get in today because we have so many other cases to still hear today.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask just a clarifying point, and we totally understand. When at least when it comes to the record and the ability for new parties to come with new evidence, as opposed to testify as to a neighbor or whatever, when it comes to public comment, is that the record is closed for opponents in opposition as opposed to testify?
Well, what I'm saying is there's no one else left other than we open it to the public. And when the public comes, they will express their voices both ways, either for or against. So we do know there's a lot of people who want to testify.
Understood.
Mr. Chair, we'll also,
if someone shows up at a later date, they're not going to we have to call witnesses back so they'd be cross-examined or.
We're going to try not to have to call anyone back. Right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
and Mr. Chair will also take the recommendation of the Planning Commission at that time.
Yeah, that's right. So we'll open it up to the public, take it from the Planning Commission and vote.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay,
Yeah,
and
thank you,
all
Chairman and members
very
of the
much,
board.
and thank your witnesses for us. We appreciate your presentation, but we will make sure that next time we have a little bit more time to concentrate on this and get it through. Thank you.